Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Let's talk now to Ambassador Harun Umar, a retired diplomat who's joining us from our Abuja studios. Good morning to you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. You're most welcome.
Let's. Do you get the sense? Do you get the sense that it seems as if the world is accepting that there's conflict in Ukraine and they're moving off? Life is going on because it appears as if we've come to accept it. If you take a look at the general world situation, other things have happened that seem to have taken the headlines away from the war in Ukraine.
Yes, of course, you can't continue to have issues on a prolonged period. Life has to move on. You see, the problem is it's coming up as exclusively between Russia and the West. Some of us in Africa and other places will have to find a way. Of course, we are affected. Particularly some other countries in Nigeria, we are lucky. Some of the side effects of the war is minimal, I will say. But you see, other countries are suffering from food shortage, for instance, and of course the effect of movement of goods as a result of the war, as a result of the sanctions. But you see, some other countries in Europe, they will never get away from it. It is right in their face, and they cannot really remove it, no matter what other situation, because it is affecting their daily lives, their day-to-day activities. They are suffering from energy crisis, they are suffering from inflation, food crisis. So this will not take away, nothing will take away from take it away from them. But Asian countries, for instance, they have a way of, they have to move on. And we in Africa, by and large, we are not quite affected, except perhaps in the area of food, particularly wheat, where most people import their wheat from Russia or from Ukraine. But otherwise, after getting to 4 months of this crisis, people will not allow it to overshadow their day-to-day activities. You see, and diplomatically, I can see that an alignment and realignment is going on, and that is going to shape the future of the international relations. And let us
talk about that international order, because that was going to be my next question. It does appear that for all practical purposes, that the diplomatic side, that is the attempt to bring about some kind of peace or truce while negotiations about what will subsequently happen take place, are for all practical purposes dead. Nobody is talking about that anymore. The closest we've come to it is the negotiations, possible negotiations over allowing Ukrainian grain to go through out of the Black Sea, which is blockaded by Russian forces. But outside that, nobody's talking about peace anymore. What does this portend for diplomacy, especially in view of what you talked about in terms of a new world order? Russia and China, possibly now Iran on one side, and then on the other, the Western allies, the UK, the US, Germany, and so on the other.
You see, after a prolonged analysis by myself of this situation, I realized that initially, the initial intention of this war was orchestrated by the desire of the West, and particularly the US, to provoke a unipolar superpower on the globe, because their action by attempting to surround Russia is to muzzle Russia to the effect of submission, such that Russia will not constitute any force, any threat to the West or to the Western interests. And that is why they are admitting more and more countries surrounding Russia. And once, if they had succeeded, they would have installed their weapons of mass destruction that will threaten, that will instill fear in Russia. And Vladimir Putin is an intelligent person. He foresaw that. And that's why he insisted there should be Ukraine must stand as a buffer between Europe and Russia. Now they refused. They continued. And up to now, they are pushing on this situation to make sure that Ukraine becomes a member of NATO. And if Ukraine is a member of NATO, automatically you can see that Russia is threatened. Now, if they had succeeded, I'm coming to that, if they had succeeded in surrounding Russia and pushing them to submission, I think my analysis shows that they are now going to move to China, because China is the next country that is constituting a threat to the West. And then, of course, they are going to use the situation in the South China Sea, where it is highly militarized, and the claims by the surrounding countries, Philippines in particular, and Japan, of course, then they will use it to now go to China, and before you know it, China will also be brought to her knees. So you have no other superpower except the U.S. Now, Vladimir, I found difficult, excuse me, I find it difficult to pronounce this name.
I understand.
Vladimir Putin. Yes, Vladimir Putin has already foresaw this situation, and he vowed that rather than to say there is no Russia, let the whole world go. And he was ready to use nuclear. I think that is the deterrent that stopped the West from sending her troops to Ukraine, because will eventually trigger.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to develop the point you mentioned about China. Following your analysis, if indeed the West thought that, okay, it was possible to surround Russia and bring all the countries within Russia's orbit into NATO and so on, and therefore strip Russia of the capacity to be another superpower that could stand up to it. China is a completely different proposition, because it's not, first of all, it's not possible to surround China. That's number one. Two, in terms of population, even if you take the armed forces, the Chinese armed forces are the biggest in the world. And in terms of population, China has more in terms of its population than Europe and the USA combined. So it's not going to be as easy to take on China. It has the second biggest economy in the world. So it's not going to be as easy to take on China as perhaps it was or it would be to take on Russia.
Yeah. Yes, it may not be as easy as Russia, but if it is not completely done, it can be weakened. China can be weakened. If it is weakened, then it will be easier to, control the rest of the world. There's no more strength that will detract their wish to make the other countries in the world submissive to their wishes. You see, this world is full of multiple standards. If you have so many, if you have let's say the U.S. now has its wish to go to countries, attack the countries, and go away scot-free. Now, they think that if it is possible to do that in some smaller countries, they could still do the same thing on Russia, and then get away with it, and then go scot-free. It is not possible. But China, as you said, China will not be easy. But they have also the capacity to put a lot of trouble around China. Like you see, the Philippines have gone to the international court, international arbitration court on the sea, the sea, where
Yes.
they were, they succeeded in getting the right over China, and the United States is supporting them. Now, the U.S. can use that as an excuse to meddle in the affairs of China. You know, the U.S., because of the continued influence or continued militarization of the South China Sea, the U.S. has also gone there to establish military installations around the place. What is it for? It is to help the other smaller countries, you know, to put problem. Now, if China is engaged with so much problems, they will not have much problem to, you know, to confront the U.S. Where they want to use their own influence and ensure hegemony on the rest of the world. You know,
Indeed.
all these things is towards making the whole world submitting to the wishes of the West and the U.S. in particular.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
I doubt
Ambassador Umar, our time is completely spent, but let me thank you during this period for your time this morning and for your perspective on the program. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
We are
Thank
most
you so
welcome.
much for your time. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.